Good morning or afternoon, depending on whenever you see this video. I wanted to chat about some books that I have acquired recently because of the holiday season from my mom, and then books that I wanted to read in this winter season into spring. I know with school, I'm probably going to be rather occupied, also trying to situate other things. It's very ambitious. And I will try my best, but I have so many books I want to talk about. And the first one is The One That Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest by Ken Kesey. My mom gave this to me because she read it during one of her classes for her master's program, and she said that I would really enjoy it. I have never heard of this novel before, so it should be a good time. A book that I found it was like at the library, but it was just a free book cart, I guess, that people drop books off that the library isn't willing to use. Man Walks Into a Room by Nicole Krauss. The synopsis is Samson Green, a young and popular professor at Columbia, is found wandering the Nevada desert. When his wife Anna comes to bring him home, she finds a man who remembers nothing, not even his own name, and the removal of a small brain tumor saves his life, but his memories beyond the age of 12 are permanently lost. Character-driven, literary fiction. It seemed like something that I could read if I was in the mood for something more moody and like heart-wrenching when I want to hurt my own feelings. So I figured this would be a fun one to pick up as well. And then I think when I'm done with it, I might donate it to another little library nearby or something along those lines. And then my mom was kind enough to let me borrow Big Swiss by Jen Began. I recently read Pretend I'm Dead by her, which was her debut novel, and it was pretty funny. It's a kind of like a character study, character driven, like you're just kind of following the main character around their life and what's going on. It's very chill, somewhat mundane, and you're just kind of following them around, and like sometimes those books are a good time. So for Big Swiss, the premise is Greta lives with her friend Sabine in an ancient Dutch farmhouse in Hudson, New York. The house is unrenovated, uninsulated, and full of bees. Greta spends her day transcribing therapy sessions for a sex coach who calls himself Ohm. She becomes infatuated with this newest client, a repressed married woman she affectionately refers to as Big Swiss. Greta is fascinated by Big Swiss's refreshing attitude toward trauma. They both have dark histories, but Big Swiss chooses to remain unattached to her suffering while Greta continues to be tortured by her past. And there's a little bit more to it, but it seems like a fun time. My mom and my older sister read this book, and they both said it was a hilarious story. And plus the cover is really dramatic. I love a good cover like that, so should be interesting. If it's anything like Pretend I'm Dead by her, I think I'll enjoy it, because that one was pretty funny. You could tell it was a debut novel, and not in like a bad sense or anything like that. It's just sometimes you can tell when it just needs like a little more work, I guess is the right word I'm looking for. But still, I had a great time reading it. The next one I got it from like a thrift store that helps like low-income families, and it's My Grandmother Asked Me to Tell You She's Sorry by Frederick Bachman. I haven't read any of his books yet. I've been meaning to. I checked out A Man Called Ove from the library and then ended up returning it because I felt bad like trying to renew if it was something that other people wanted to read. But this was like 50 cents and I couldn't help myself considering the condition it's in. Like, it's barely used. It also came with a bookmark. So I felt obligated to, and I thought it was $1, but it was only like 50 cents. So it was a must-have. And the synopsis is Elsa is 7 years old and different. Her grandmother is 77 years old and crazy, as in standing on the balcony firing a paintball gun at strangers crazy. She's also Elsa's best and only friend. At night, Elsa takes refuge in her grandmother's stories in the land of Almost Awake and the kingdom of Miyamas, where everybody is different and nobody needs to be normal. When Elsa's grandmother dies and leaves behind a series of letters apologizing to the people she has wronged, Elsa's greatest adventure begins. Her grandmother's instructions lead her to an apartment building full of misfits, monsters, attack dogs, old crones, but also the truth about fairy tales and kingdoms and a grandmother like no other. So it seems like it'd be wholesome, another one of those books if I wanted to set myself up to cry, have a little tissue box nearby kind of day. This will be one of them. And I was thinking about doing a reading vlog of books that I think will make me cry because, let's be honest, it doesn't take much. But I figured it would be something that could be interesting. And then my little sister, for Christmas, she got my older sister, and my mom and I these like book mystery boxes. So it had like a book, little tote bag that you can see here, bookmarks, cute bookish stickers, and things like that. And the book that she got me was 100 Years of Solitude by Gabriel Garcia Marquez. And I had also checked this book out from the library, and I started reading it, and I found that it was a book that I wanted to annotate and have a physical copy of so I could take my time reading it. I felt like when I checked it out, it was a book that I was going to need time with and like marinate with. And it's hard to do that with a library book. Like when I check out books from the library, I want them to be books that are somewhat fast-paced and quick because I feel bad holding on to books that I know other people are trying to read, especially from more common authors. I figured this would be a good one to ask for, and she delivered. So I'm very excited. The synopsis of 100 Years of Solitude is a story of the rise and fall, the birth and death of the mythical town of Macondo through the history of the Buendia family. Inventive, amusing, magnetic, sad, and alive with unforgettable men and women, brimming with truth, compassion, and a lyrical magic that strikes the soul. This novel is a masterpiece in the art of fiction, and the amount of people that I've seen read this, and I've like brushed upon like several reviews of, people love it. So I'm very happy to have a physical copy, and I also have a sister for it, Love in the Time of Cholera. So it's nice to have two books by this author that I'm going to get to in this year of reading. It's fun to have like a different book by an author when like they have, like, this is his most popular book, but it's also fun to read other books that are probably equally as amazing but not as known or talked about. I'm very excited about this one. For Christmas as well, my mom, being the sweet lady she is, knows how much I love Frankenstein, and I'm currently doing a audiobook re-listen to of, and she got me this edition, and it's kind of hard to tell, maybe it'll pick it up, but it's like not glittery, but like shiny, like metallic kind of. This is the back, and it's just a gorgeous, like when you flip through it, the way it's printed is absolutely lovely. The back of this edition says, "To examine the causes of life, we must first have a recourse to death. I became acquainted with the science of anatomy, but this was not sufficient. I must also observe the natural decay and corruption of the human body." So it's so pretty. I have it set up on my floating shelves, and I almost forgot to take it down for this video, but it's just too beautiful to not have displayed. So thank you to my sweet mother. I have 4 editions now of Frankenstein, I believe, yeah. But this one's so pretty. If I can find where she bought this, I can try to remember to link it. She said it was quite difficult to come by and that it was sold out previously and whatever. So if I can find a place to get this, like, I will link it, but come on, it's so pretty. Gorgeous. And then my first book purchase of the year on my own was The Black Tulip by Alexandre Dumas. And I finished Monte Cristo a couple weeks ago, and I've been ruminating on the fact that I feel like my life is just not the same since I'm not reading it. So I wanted to experiment with some of his other works, but I wasn't really in the mood for The Three Musketeers or The Man in the Iron Mask. I'm not really familiar with either of them, but this one, it's similar concept, it seems like, as The Count of Monte Cristo, but not as long. It's only like a little over 200 pages. It seems like kind of a cute time, if I'm being honest. Considering it's like a classic. It seems like it'll be a silly fun time. If it's anything like The Count of Monte Cristo, I'll love it. Synopsis is Cornelius Van Barrel, a respectable tulip grower, lives only to cultivate the elusive black tulip and win a magnificent prize for its creation. But after his powerful grandfather is assassinated, the unwitting Cornelius becomes caught up in a deadly political intrigue and is falsely accused of high treason by a bitter rival. Condemned to life imprisonment, his only comfort is Rosa, the jailer's beautiful daughter, and together they concoct a plan to grow the black tulip in secret. Dumas's last major historical novel is a tale of romantic love, jealousy, and obsession, interweaving historical events surrounding the brutal murders of two Dutch statesmen in 1672 with a phenomenon of tulipomania that gripped the 17th century Holland. So I think it's going to be a fun time. And it's the fact that it's centered around growing flowers is really cute and probably more intense than I would gather it would be. So very excited about that. So those are all the new books that I have acquired for like my personal stash, you could say. So got all these and they're gorgeous. Books that I have on my like winter and January through maybe March TBR. Most of these are books that I own or that I've received from my mom to borrow and whatnot. And then I have two from the library. And the one I got from the library, Everyone in This Room Will Someday Be Dead by Emily Austen. So I started reading this last night and I'm a little over, almost halfway, I would say. I think I'm like 100 pages. Yeah, 96 pages. Super funny read. It kind of reminds me of Jen Began in the fact that it's just a very mundane, like, character-driven book. It's just this girl, and it's just, like, different thought. I don't even know how to describe it. Like, I'll just read the synopsis. Gilda can't stop thinking about death. Desperate for relief from her anxious mind, she responds to a flyer for free therapy at a local Catholic church, but Father Jeff assumes she's there for a job interview. Caught off guard and too embarrassed to correct him, Gilda is abruptly hired to replace the recently deceased receptionist, Grace. It's not the most obvious job. She's a lesbian and an atheist, for starters, and so in between trying to learn Mass and conducting an amateur investigation into Grace's death, Gilda must avoid revealing the truth of her own mortifying existence. It's funny. The parts about the anxiety and how she deals with them are somewhat relatable. Some of it's kind of funny, like the way she thinks and like how she spirals from like one thought to the next. It's kind of squirrely. So it is funny. I'm enjoying it, and I should finish it probably by, I would say, Saturday, so like 2 days from now. If I read it, it's a super quick easy read. If you are new to like character-driven books, I feel like she would be a good one to kind of dip your toes into. And then the other book I received from the library is My Year of Rest and Relaxation by Miss Otessa. And I read Death in Her Hands by Miss Otessa probably about 4 months ago, I want to say. Had a really curious time. That was one of my first character-driven plot books that I've read, and so it was different, and it left me curious about her other stuff, and my library only had this available by her. They didn't have any of her other books. This is one of her most popular, so I was very surprised that I had seen it, because I go every week. Sometimes I just walk around and I haven't seen it before. The synopsis is, our narrator has many of the advantages in life on the surface. Young, thin, pretty, a recent Columbia graduate, she lives in an apartment on the Upper East Side of Manhattan, paid for, like the rest of her needs, by her inheritance. But there's a vacuum at the heart of things, and it isn't just the loss of her parents while she was in college, or the miserable way her Wall Street sometime boyfriend treats her, or her sadomasochistic relationship with her alleged best friend. It's the year 2000 in a city of glitter with wealth and possibility. What could be so terribly wrong? Another one of, I don't know what my ideal is, but I've just been obsessed with character-driven books. Like, I just want to be in the character's head and just go about days with them. Like, I haven't been in a crazy fantasy mood or romance mood. I've just been in literary fiction world and classics. And it's fun to switch the genres up and keep things interesting, because I've been feeling really burnt out with romance books and fantasy books. I feel like a lot of it, especially now, is quite repetitive, and also just trying to like read things that are gonna make me a better person or like understand people better instead of just like reading smut. Like there's a time and a place for that, but it's fun to keep things different and to try to challenge yourself and to learn different things. So I've been having fun experimenting in different genres. You see how staticky my hair is? It's wintry. It's like 20 degrees outside and my hair is like electric. I received this book for my birthday, my 25th birthday, from my mom, and it's Oscar Wilde, The Picture of Dorian Gray, and she thinks that I'm gonna love this book. Okay, she is so determined, and I've never really heard about this book very much. Like, obviously I know it existed, but I didn't know the premise or anything about it. Similar to Frankenstein. Once I read the synopsis, I was like, oh, I think I could see why she would think I would like this, especially if I think she related it to Monte Cristo in the sense of like the adventure and stuff like that. But the synopsis is, entranced by the perfection of his recently painted portrait, the youthful Dorian Gray expresses a wish that the figure on the canvas could change, age, and change in his place. When his wish becomes true, the portrait becomes his hideous secret as he follows a downward trajectory of decadence and cruelty that leaves its traces only in the portrait's degraded image. Wilde's unforgettable portrayal of a Faustian bargain and its consequences is narrated with his characteristic incisive wit and diamond-sharp prose. I think it could be interesting. Oh yeah, so it was written in like the late Victorian era, 1854. I believe that's the Victorian era. Yeah, it literally says it literally says late Victorian era. I'm fine. Next book, moving on, is Winter Garden by Kristen Hanna. I know nothing about this book, but I just assumed Winter Garden. I should probably read it in a cold time of year, winter time perhaps. I don't want to read the synopsis because I don't want to spoil it for myself, and I have it available on my Kindle, so it's for free on Kindle Unlimited with like the subscription. You want to guarantee I'm gonna cry? Bet your bottom dollar it's gonna make me cry. Every single Kristen Hanna book I've ever read has made me cry. Her books are just so heart-wrenching. The next book is Anxious People by Frederick Bachman. I bought this a couple months ago when my mom was in town. The synopsis for this one is, looking at real estate isn't usually a life or death situation, but an apartment open house becomes just that when a failed bank robber bursts in and takes a group of 8 strangers hostage. Each of them carries a lifetime of grievances, hurts, secrets, and passions that are ready to boil over. None of them is entirely who they appear to be. In short, they are the worst group of hostages in the world, but as the minutes tick by, they begin to suspect that the criminal mastermind holding them hostage might be in more need of rescuing than they are. As the authorities and the media surround the premises, these reluctant allies will reveal surprising truths about themselves and set in motion a chain of events so unexpected that even they can hardly explain what happens next. It just seems so interesting. Like, I'm an anxious person, right? I've been working on it. I've been getting a lot better, actually, in case anyone was curious. I didn't buy it because of the title. I just know that, like, this is one of his books that was received very well and wasn't as heavy as like A Man Called Ove, and I know Beartown is multiple books. It's somewhat of a series, I believe, and I figured this would be a good one to kind of get my toes wet with Frederick Bachman. I think I'll like his writing style just based on the feedback that I've read and heard about from other people, so excited about that. Wow! It's so cold here that even like room temp water is so cold, it kind of hurts. It tastes like it's ice water, but it's not ice water. The Snow Hare by Paula Lichtarowicz. I'm so sorry. I don't know how to pronounce your last name, Miss Paula. The reason I picked this out for my winter TBR, if you could take a guess, take a little gander, there's snow and snow in the title. I don't know anything about this book, but it says, is it possible to find love at the edge of life? Seems like a heavy book. Hannah has lived a long, quiet life on her farm in Wales alongside her husband and child, but as her end approaches, buried memories begin to return of her childhood in Poland and her dream of becoming a doctor against all odds, of the early days of her marriage, reluctant wife to an army officer, of the birth of her daughter whose arrival changed everything, memories less welcome return to, of her Polish village transformed overnight by Soviets, and of World War II, which doomed her entire family to the frigid work camps of the Siberian tundra, and buried in that blinding snow amid the darkness of survival, the most haunting memory of all, that of an extraordinary new love, and, all too soon after, a fateful choice. It seems like it could be a good time. I didn't realize it was centered in like the World War II era. I don't really read books around that time too often anymore, just because I was subjected to reading about it so often as a kid that it's just a bit much. I don't mean that in like a selfish way or like a rude way, but just emotionally it was really hard for me to read about it for so many years. It's the same thing with The Nightingale. I had no idea that was centered around World War II, and it really me up, if I'm being honest. It's the same thing like when we had to learn about 9/11 so often as kids, and like the videos they made children watch was so traumatic. Like I almost threw up a couple times because of the videos they made us watch. But I digress. I'm gonna have to read this when I'm feeling like mentally equipped for it, because that time period is just really heavy. And I did not know that. I did not know that that was the premise. My final book is An Education in Malice by S.T. Gibson. I read A Dowry in Blood by her, I want to say summertime, and that was courtesy of my mom's suggestion, and it was on Kindle Unlimited, so I was like, why not? And I loved it. I thought the writing was lovely, the way S.T. Gibson's story tells, especially in A Dowry in Blood, was so good. Like I flew through that book. And so I thought I'd give another like gothic style book a chance. Yeah, it's like a dark academia gothic kind of vibe. Synopsis is, deep in the forgotten hills of Massachusetts stands St. Perpetua's Women's College. Isolated and ancient, it is not the place for timid girls. Here, secrets are currency, ambition is lifeblood, and strange ceremonies welcome students into the fold. On her first day of class, Laura Sheridan is thrust into an intense academic rivalry with the beautiful and enigmatic Carmilla. Together they are drawn into the confidence of their demanding poetry professor De Lafontaine, who holds her own dark obsessions with Carmilla. But as their rivalry blooms into something far more delicious, Laura must confront her own strange hungers. Tangled in the sinister game of politics, bloodthirsty for professors and magic, Laura and Carmilla must decide how much they are willing to sacrifice in their ruthless pursuit of knowledge. Oh, the font is huge! That's really big font. I feel like I could read this in the dark. Who would have thought? It just seems so interesting. And like the back, one of us was always going to bleed for the other. Bom, bom, bom. Like, come on, that sounds so spooky. I'm excited for this one. There's allegedly a storm coming tomorrow that I perhaps will get snow. So depending on that, I will either start An Education in Malice or Oscar Wilde, but I also have to read this pretty soon because it's due the next like 6 days or so. I can renew it up to one more time, but I've already had it for almost a month. So I want to read this pretty soon as well. So I have a lot of options for this winter season, and I feel like some of them are a little different with like sub themes, but a lot of them are similar in like how they're character oriented. So I'm excited about this season of books. I lowered my reading goal. I never really intended to have a reading goal and stick to it so intensely, I guess. Like, I switched to Fable, and my book goal for last year was 75 books, and I think I read like 82 or 83. But this year I set it to 50 because I found that I was just reading to get the number higher, and I'd rather read books to enjoy them. So I set a goal that was like somewhat attainable, but also like with school, it's really difficult to set aside the time to want to read, especially when I'm so tired. If I read 50, I read 50. If I don't really mind. I'm not really set on how many books I read. I just want to read books that are a good time. I've been doing that. I mean, technically, I've read 2 physical books, and then I've read like 2 books in the Bible. So I'm not counting those along with like my reading goal, because I'm reading the Bible for other reasons, and I read books like this for like enjoyment. But you know, everyone has a goal. There's like 66 books in the Bible. My goal is to read it through in a year, and I started it about 3 months ago. I think I'm like 7 or 8 books in so far, so got that going. And yeah, I think if you want to have reading goals, it's fun, but there's no point in putting pressure on yourself. As long as you're enjoying what you're reading, I feel like that's really all that matters. And I want to have a book club book with my mom and sisters soon, because we haven't read the same book in a while. All the winter things. I hope you enjoyed me yapping for what, like almost 30 minutes now. I hope you guys have some good picks and are enjoying your winter season. Hopefully you're staying warm and or cozy. If you're getting the storm soon that's about to hit us, I hope you're safe and you don't have to leave your home, because nobody wants to drive out when it's spooky outside. And yeah, I will chat you guys up again soon. I'm trying to not be as MIA, but you know how life is. But yeah, thanks again, and have a nice day.